Hi, Mark Westhead, Naturopath. Thanks for joining me. I just wanted to talk today about how stress affects the gut. So we have this thing called the gut-brain axis, and it's how the gut and the brain communicate. So the gut is constantly sending information to the brain about the environment, the terrain of the gut, and what's happening within the digestive tract. And similarly, the brain is constantly communicating back to the gut. It does this through the enteric nervous system, through the vagus nerve, and through the microbiome, which is all the bugs, the bacteria that live in the large intestine. So what happens during stress to the stomach is that gastric emptying of the stomach is slowed. So why does this happen? It's because during stress, during a fight or flight mode, digestion simply isn't important. So if you think back to our ancestors, they would have been out hunting for prey for their family, their village, and they may encounter another predatory animal that's after the same prey that they are. And so all of a sudden the situation becomes dangerous. So they need to be able to run, flee for their life, or stand and fight. So what happens is the body then increases the heart rate and increases breathing. So your breathing becomes heavy. And that's designed so that oxygen-rich blood can be pumped into the muscles and pumped into the brain. And also the liver releases a lot of glucose so that glucose, that fuel supply, can be pumped into the muscles and into the brain so that you can think clearer and so that you can flee, run fast. So the gastric emptying is reduced. This can lead to indigestion, gastroesophageal reflux disease, also known as GERD. And the symptoms of that can be reflux, burping, nausea, bloating, coughing, even chest pain, and also constipation and or diarrhea. Some people get one or the other, some people experience both. It can also lead to gastritis, which is inflammation of the lining of the stomach, and that can cause the effects that we spoke about just a moment ago. And when people experience this burning sort of reflux, acid reflux sort of feeling, they typically reach for some sort of symptomatic relief, such as antacids or proton pump inhibitors, which are advertised on the TV. You can go and get them from the chemist. The problem is, though, that those sort of medications should only be taken in the short term. The packaging normally says not to be taken for more than 2 weeks. Information on the manufacturer's website would say not to be taken for more than 2 weeks. The problem is, though, that I see a lot of clients who have been taking these sort of things for years. And as I say, it provides symptomatic relief, but it's not treating the root cause. They will diminish the quality of the stomach acid and increase the pH of the stomach acid. So pH is a scale of 0 to 14, where 7 is neutral, and like water is generally around 7. But the stomach acid should be between 2 and 3. Really good quality stomach acid should be around about 2 or 3. Poor quality stomach acid will decrease your ability to break down proteins, particularly proteins from meat, and that will lead to a decrease in iron absorption, because stomach acid is necessary for breaking the iron from foods, and it will also lead to a decrease in vitamin B12, because vitamin B12 is also cleaved off in the stomach. So the stomach wall has little cells called parietal cells, and they pump out a thing called intrinsic factor, and that intrinsic factor breaks off the vitamin B12 from the foods that we eat. So stress alters gastric secretions further down in the stomach along the digestive tract. Not only does it affect the stomach acid, but it affects digestive enzymes from the pancreas, and it also affects hormones that are released throughout the gastrointestinal tract, such as zonulin. And we'll talk about zonulin a little bit more a bit later. Stress also increases the motility of the digestive tract. So we mentioned before that it can be slow coming out of the stomach, but once that food reaches the rest of the digestive tract, it comes out really quickly. So in a healthy person, from eating food to passing it through the anus should take around about 30 to 40 hours. But when people are highly stressed, that can be greatly reduced to 6 to 8 hours. So in that sort of instance, you'll experience loose bowels, or you might think it's diarrhea, and that will result in the poor absorption of nutrients, because the nutrients are supposed to be slowly making their way through the digestive system, so that nutrients can be absorbed and reabsorbed, and moisture, water can be absorbed and reabsorbed further down the bowel. So it can lead to poor absorption of nutrients, which will result in you becoming malnourished. So you might be eating a lot, but you're just not absorbing all the nutrients that your body needs. It'll also increase intestinal permeability. So the cells around the lumen of the stomach, there's really only one cell thick. The enterocyte's really only one cell thick, and they're kind of like hands, and they're joined together. That joint is called a tight junction, and that tight junction can loosen. They also have little fingers called microvilli, which catch all the nutrients that flow through your digestive tract, and those nutrients should be absorbed through the cell. When you get increased permeability or leaky gut, those tight junctions open up, and larger, poorly digested food particles can go between the cells rather than going through the cells. That leaky gut, that increased permeability or leaky gut, is a result of high levels of zonulin. So zonulin, the hormone from the gut, is a marker of leaky gut. Stress also negatively affects the capacity of the intestinal mucosa to repair itself. So the mucosa is the mucous membrane around the digestive tract. So it can't really repair itself properly. That negatively affects the microbiome a little further downstream in the large intestine. So all the gut bacteria get displaced with the diversity is not quite right. So rather than having lots of good bacteria in your bowel, you end up having the bad bacteria that really like sugary things. So all of this leads to increased inflammation throughout the gut. But the thing is, though, when you have inflammation throughout the gut, you have inflammation elsewhere. It becomes systemic inflammation, and that can include the blood-brain barrier. So things can then get through the blood-brain barrier that shouldn't be getting through, and that can lead to mood disorders and like anxiety and depression. Stress can also alter your immune function, because the large intestine is basically the seat of your immune system. All those trillions of bacteria in your gut, all those bugs, they actually are your immune system. And it's also where neurotransmitters are synthesized. So neurotransmitters such as serotonin, which is the feel-good neurotransmitter, it's actually made in your large intestine. It's used in the brain. But if your gut isn't working properly and you aren't making neurotransmitters properly, then you're going to have less serotonin, and you're going to have an altered mood. So people who suffer from anxiety, and particularly depression, have been found to have low levels of serotonin. So this further adds to anxiety and depression, and it can also, the inflammation can also lead to things like irritable bowel syndrome and inflammatory bowel disease, such as Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, or in fact other autoimmune conditions. Stress also leads to poor food choices, simply because food can be seen, when we're stressed, constantly stressed, food can be seen as a reward for getting through a situation or through a rough day. And typically, stressed people become less interested in cooking and less interested in eating healthy. So they increase their intake of junk food, takeaway food, processed food, snacks, donuts, all sorts of things that you know aren't good for you, and increase their intake of sugary drinks and alcohol. And the bad bugs, gut bugs in our large intestine, they love sugar. So the good bugs like fiber, that's their main source of food. They make short-chain fatty acids and all sorts of good things, but the bad bugs want sugar, and they'll be screaming out for sugar constantly when we have a poor functioning gut and when we're under stress. So you might think to yourself that it's you who have the sugar craving, but it's actually the bugs that have the sugar craving. And that constantly, that also contributes to poor quality stomach acid and further adds to indigestion. It also contributes to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or if you do drink a lot of alcohol, then fatty liver disease. And it contributes towards obesity and type 2 diabetes. So there you have it, just a few thoughts on stress and how that impacts the gut. If you think that you would like some help with your digestion, with your gut in general, or if you would like help with anxiety, depression, then you can give me a call. I'm located in the KP Centre, Chatswood Road in Shayla Park, which is halfway between Brisbane and the Gold Coast. But I'm also available to do video consultations via Zoom. You can book through my website, markwestheadnaturopath.com, or if you like, you can email me at mark@markwestheadnaturopath.com. So I hope that was helpful. Hope you got some good information out of that, and I'll talk to you soon. Until then, good health.